No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live episode number 194 and breaking right now with Reform UK slumping 4 points in the polls after reporting Rupert Lowe to the cops. Nigel Farage appeared to U-turn on his move away from mass deportations in his Birmingham rally speech.
I will reiterate, nobody that comes into our country on the back of a lorry or via a boat will ever be given refugee status, will ever be given leave to remain. Nobody. Nobody.
But what does he really mean, given there are already well over 1 million people here illegally who need to be sent home? I'll analyse in my digest next. Then Father Calvin Robinson weighs in. And I cannot wait for that. Also coming up on the show today, Marine Le Pen banned from running for the presidency of France in a deep state stitch-up which is spreading across Europe. How long until the globalists find a way to take out Nigel Farage? Radio warfare at the BBC as Emma Barnett complains about fellow Today presenter Nick Robinson in a major new luvvie media feud. And Prince Harry accused of bullying, misogyny, and being part of a cover-up as the Sentebale charity boss admits I was right all along about her toxic fallout with Meghan Markle. Is this the end of the Sussex's humanitarian brand?
It was me who was the problem because I put a whistleblower complaint about the bullying, the harassment, and the misogyny, and Prince Harry interfered in the investigation of that. And the senior independent director who should have taken care of it was the very same person who then delivered the news to me that I was going to be removed by the board. So it's a cover-up, and the prince is involved.
And it's not the first time he's been involved in a cover-up involving bullying, is it? This truly is a scandal. I'm going to take you through all of it later in the show. Then in the Uncancelled Aftershow, more royal news as Princess Eugenie is now engaged in a bitter feud with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle over her secret relationship with Piers Morgan. All the shocking details as we team up with the Royal News Network. www.outspoken.live is where you can sign up. Of course, it's the first Greatest Britain and Uni and Jackass of the week too. You can get voting for Uni and Jackass within the live chat if you're watching on YouTube right now. But here are your nominees. Ed Davey, nominated by Darren Donaldson for his usual insufferable dicking around. He would be more suited to joining a circus as he is more of a clown than a sitting MP. An absolute disgrace. And as Elon Musk correctly stated, a snivelling cretin. Taiwo Owatimi, nominated by It's Only Me 44 for using £900 of our taxpayer money to pay for her dog to live with her at a second home. And nominated by Y Flanagan 060786, the MP Tahir Ali, because he wants us to build an airport in Pakistan. And of course, these are the exact same MPs who do not want a third runway at Heathrow Airport. Brilliant choices, great nominations. Thank you so much. Get voting. I'll reveal the winner as well as your feedback, so get commenting at the end of the show. But now, let's go. I always warned that under Labour and this slippery Starmer administration, there was going to be a decision to throw open our borders and fail to stop the invasion of the southern border, which has unfortunately proven to be true. Now, Starmer might tell the Daily Mail today, believe me, I get it. You are right to be angry about illegal migration, but he's done nothing to stop it. So Nigel Farage is rightly trying to reclaim the political initiative after a disastrous month for Reform UK.
Keir Starmer said he'd smashed the gangs. Well, here we are, 9 months on, and 30,000 people, nearly all young men, have crossed this stretch of water. Again today, he's out there. You know what? he has managed to break the Conservatives' record for the numbers coming. Nothing Starmer does will stop the gangs. This won't end until we deport those that come here illegally, and only reform will do that.
Okay, great news. But, and there is a big but, it's still impossible to determine whether Nigel is prepared to back mass deportations of all illegals in Britain. As Peter Lloyd on X post pointed out, Nigel Farage in 2024, it's a political impossibility to deport thousands of people. We simply cannot do it. Nigel Farage in 2025, every single person who comes to Britain illegally will be deported, every single one. So what's the truth, Nigel Farage? And if you listen very closely to the key line from the Birmingham speech, which I'm going to play you now, I think you'll end up having the same major question as me. Watch.
I will reiterate, nobody that comes into our country on the back of a lorry or via a boat will ever be given refugee status, will ever be given leave to remain. Nobody. Nobody. It is unfair. It is wrong. It is also deeply unfair to those who have come here legally, and that's worth thinking about. And let me tell you, everyone that comes illegally will be deported, full stop, end of story.
Now, Farage loyalists were quick to rally. Chief Whip Lee Anderson posted, and there you go, in plain English, quoting Nigel's tweet, which said every single person who comes to Britain illegally will be deported, end of story. And the party's, I have to say, outstanding new candidate to be the mayor for West of England, Aaron Banks, responded to this post from Brothers UK, which said, disappointing reform are effectively going to give an amnesty to all of the legals in the country up to the point of the next election. If this stands, it will affect votes. I voted reform in the last general election, but will boycott the locals for this reason. But Aaron Banks replied, Nigel was clear, if you come to this country illegally, out you go. But let me repeat, that isn't the point. It's about the well over 1 million people, probably 2 million people, who are already here illegally. They need to go too. That is a very popular policy, by the way, supported by 99% of Reform UK voters, well over 60% of the general population. But despite Nigel's clever wording in Birmingham, he hasn't committed. And the thing is, he needs to, because the Reform UK base are not happy. Indeed, during the mega rally on Friday night, the on-screen ticker of Reform's membership started trending downwards to the point that it had to be removed from the screen. And I don't celebrate any of this, by the way. I repeat, I voted for Reform UK. I was the first to predict that Nigel Farage would become Prime Minister. But what has happened over the past month, especially the defenestration of the mass deportation supporting Rupert Lowe, has concerned many. And Nigel did use the event on Friday night to double down in his support for the party's chairman, Zia Youssef, who is facing significant backlash because, remember, he is the one that decided to report Rupert Lowe to the police for hurty words. Watch.
Zia has given dedication, hard work, belief, helping me, helping us do what we can do. Zia, as chairman, is an absolute superstar and has a major future in British politics. Where is he? Where is he? He's somewhere. I saw him in the green room. He's somewhere.
Now, remember, everyone within Reform has spent weeks dismissing people like me, probably some of you, who have been concerned about Rupert's treatment as some sort of niche issue for what they describe as the online right. But that's actually been proven to be untrue. And I loved this meme, actually, from The Office. But security had to be called on Friday to remove protesters in Birmingham that were shouting the name Rupert. Okay, you could say that's anecdotal. But what about this new polling from BMG Research released in the past few hours, which shows Reform UK slumping 4 points to now sit behind Labour and the Conservatives? That is a massive change in the past month. And what happened in the past month? The treatment of Rupert Lowe, the Reform UK civil war. Meanwhile, Rupert's decision to launch his own rape gang inquiry has proved incredibly popular, especially, and I mean, these were some people who were also not allowed in because they were campaigning over the rape gang issue on Friday night. And it's been especially popular for Rupert Lowe, given he is able to say that he is keeping a promise that Nigel Farage made. And I'm going to show you the promise that Nigel Farage made. It was very, very clear, and sadly one he hasn't kept.
If they won't do it, we at Reform will do it. I will have no difficulty in raising the money to do this whatsoever. We'll appoint independent ex-judges and experts, and we will have this out in public. And I hope, Sir Keir...
Will you have the statutory powers that will be granted to you through a public inquiry?
No, I won't have the statutory powers, but I tell you what, I think this would garner such massive public support that anybody that was asked to appear that didn't appear would look terrible. I promise you, I can raise the money for it today. Not from Elon Musk either. I can raise the money for it today, and we can do this, and I mean it. I mean it, and I think that the government will know that when I say something, I mean it.
See, again, I find this so difficult. I'm not someone that wants to constantly attack Nigel Farage, but that was just a few weeks ago, saying he meant it and that the government would trust what he said, but he's backed away from the rape gang inquiry, and it has been launched by Rupert Lowe. And let's look right now, because this is extraordinary stuff. The crowdfunding target sits at £392,000. Really? Just £100,000 off from the £500,000 target. And can you see? There are 12,000 people, over 12,000 of you, who have pledged their own money at this very difficult time to Rupert Lowe's rape gang inquiry. Let me just say, that's not bad for a band of Indian bots, right? Now, Father Calvin Robinson. Father Calvin, great to have you. As you know, I have been far more supportive of Reform UK and Nigel Farage than you, for example, but I think we probably agree on this issue of mass deportations. And what Nigel Farage said in Birmingham on Friday night was anyone who comes to the country. What about the people already here? Father Calvin, that's the issue. Those are the people that need to be mass deported.
The problem I see here is that Farage is out of his depth. So he's always campaigned on a singular issue, mostly the EU referendum. So you always know exactly where he stood. With Reform, it's different because they're trying to engage into general UK politics. That means they have to have opinions or policies on vast swathes of things, including immigration. And he's not sure how to do that. And so some people think, okay, clearly Reform are anti-immigration. Some people think Reform are pro-immigration and just against mass immigration. And there's a swathe of people in between who are quite clearly unsure where Reform stands. I personally have seen him say things that seem very pro-immigration, and I've seen him say things that seem very anti-immigration. So I wouldn't know where Reform stand at this moment in time. I don't think Farage is being very clear, especially when it seems that Rupert Lowe is the one who's very ardently, I mean, Rupert Lowe said mass deportation more than any other politician. So it's clear where he stands, and Farage seems to be against Rupert Lowe. So does that mean that Farage is pro-mass immigration and against mass deportations?
Well, I mean, I just think we have to look at what he said. Because unfortunately,
Which time?
and I would love it, well, I would love it if he U-turned, but let's look at the most recent comment, okay? He said, every single person who comes to Britain illegally will be deported. I'm sorry, Father Calvin, that is talking about people who come once he is in power. It is not talking about the people who are already here. I would love it if Nigel had genuinely U-turned in the way that Lee Anderson and Aaron Banks are claiming that he has. But my reading of that line is that he is sticking to the fact that he believes it is a political impossibility to deport the thousands of people. And actually, it's the hundreds of thousands, Calvin. It's the millions of people that are already here. And that's not good enough, I'm afraid. It's just not good enough.
No.
We've got to save our country.
The Office of National Statistics underplays the value, the number,
Yes.
I think. You're right. There are far more illegal immigrants in the UK
Yeah, because
than
they
we
say
know
one.
about.
I think they said like a couple of years ago it was 1.2 million. So I would conservatively estimate 2 million.
Which is just ridiculous. But you're right. Taking into context what Farage has recently said, people who come into the country, take that into context along with what he said in the one of the long form interviews he did with Winston Marshall, where he said it's just politically impossible, mass deportation, politically impossible. We just can't do it. It's like, so there's no political will there or political drive to do. I mean, you can just do things. Donald Trump is proving you can just do things if you have the political will. And so Farage has shown he doesn't have that, unfortunately. And so taking into consideration his latest comment, it does seem that he will put things in place to stop new people coming in or to send them back. But the millions who are already here, they're going to continue to sponge off the system, going to continue to drive up knife crime and other epidemics of crime in the country. And what are we going to do about those?
Well, indeed. And the thing is that I feel like what was happening on Friday was almost a response to the very obvious damage that Reform UK know has been done by the treatment of Rupert Lowe. And the problem is Rupert Lowe has made it clear he's not going to go quietly. I understand, Father Calvin, there are a lot of Reform UK supporters who are watching who wishes that we would shut up about this, who wishes that Rupert Lowe would just slink off like many of the other rivals who Nigel Farage has dealt with in the past have. But I do think we're dealing with a different type of man when it comes to Rupert Lowe. This guy is worth tens of millions of pounds, Father Calvin. As far as he is concerned, he has nothing to lose. And when it comes to the rape gang inquiry, and I'm sure you agree, to raise that amount of money in difficult times so quickly is truly phenomenal, proving that these are real people, Father Calvin, supporting Rupert Lowe's cause. I've never bought into this whole bots argument. Like, yeah, there are bots out there online. Of course, every political movement uses them. But just to dismiss the anger felt over the reporting of Rupert Lowe to the police was nonsensical. Likewise, allowing Rupert Lowe to launch the rape gang inquiry that you promised, and he so clearly promised. I just think it's a political mistake.
It's a massive mistake, and this dismissive attitude of, oh yeah, they're not real people, they're just bots. That's what the left does. I don't like to see politicians using that because it takes a voice away from people who align with people like Rupert Lowe. The people who are supporting Rupert Lowe are not bots, they're real people. And for Farage to shrug them off, that's disenfranchising people from politics, and that's what the left does. But for the people who still support Farage and wish that you and I would shut up and Rupert Lowe would shut up and everyone else who challenges Farage would just be quiet, to what end? Like, we don't want to win at any cost. We don't want to win just for the sake of winning. If Reform winning just means we'll have more of what we've just had for the last 20 years, what's the point? Yes, you get to wear your blue t-shirt and say 4 more years, fantastic, but what else? The country will still be in an absolute state. We won't be deporting the vast swathes of illegal immigrants who are already in the country, driving up knife crime and sponging off the welfare state. So what difference will it make? No, let's not shut up. Let's challenge the right until the right is actually right-wing and wants to make a difference. Because if they get into power without that challenge, it's all for naught.
Exactly. And the thing is, Father Calvin, I'm a practical person, as you know, but that's why, and again, I know a lot of people don't agree with this, but that's why I'm cheering on Robert Jenrick, for example, the Shadow Justice Secretary, who I think is doing brilliant work within the Conservative Party at the moment, because what has to happen is a genuine movement in that Overton window. And if Jenrick can actually move to the right of Farage, then great, because we are a long, long way away from a general election. And what we have to do in the United Kingdom is what Donald Trump has done with his second term. Come in all guns blazing. And if that means some type of new coalition between the true believers who truly want to save this country because we know what's at stake, then so be it. So right now, and I know this will upset some people, Father Calvin, I'm not going to be party political about this. I am going to support the people who are saying the right things and doing the right things on the issues that matter, because we have to shift the national conversation. The mainstream media is never going to do it, so we in the independent media are going to have to do it.
100%. This is true patriotism. We're not tribal to Reform or the Conservative Party. We're tribal to the country of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. That should be everyone's priority. It's not about your particular badge or color of politics winning. It's about the country winning. And I like your form of pragmatism. Look, if the Conservatives manage to get their act together and get all the Liberals out and get the Conservatives in and push for genuine Conservative policies, they may win my support back. This is the way it should be, absolutely. As far as I can see, the Reform Party is not on the right of politics. I don't think Conservatives are yet, but I see what you mean about Jenrick at least showing good intentions. Let's see what they do. And you know where my support is at the moment with Nick Tinconi and UKIP, who are the only ones that are out there on the streets actively promoting a Christian country. That's what I want to see more of.
Breaking right now, the most shocking form of lawfare in France with Marine Le Pen, who I believed was certain to become the next president and succeed the failed, quite evil Emmanuel Macron, now banned from running for 5 years in an anti-democratic outrage. And let me promise you, this is a sign of things to come. Europe's deep state have lost the plot. They know that they are losing the people. They know that their disgusting globalist tactics of completely destroying our nation states is failing. So what they're going to do is one by one remove the human beings that lead movements to challenge this damn thing. We've seen it in Romania. Now France, and I believe it will be the United Kingdom next. Father Calvin Robinson, I stand with Marine Le Pen. I feel like what has happened to her today is an absolute disgrace. And I pray that the French people do not put up with this, because democracy is at stake now.
It absolutely is. And it's funny that the people who often say that are the ones who are against actual democracy. When they say we've got to protect our democracy, what they mean is they've got to protect their way of life and prevent any alternative politicians coming up to power. We've seen this across the board. What's happening to Marine Le Pen is awful. It is anti-democratic. It's anti-French. And it's the same. We've had the same in the US. They tried to prosecute who is now President Donald Trump. They try to prevent anyone opposing them, really. They use lawfare against them. It's the same in the United Kingdom. Tommy Robinson isn't a political politician, but he is a political activist, and so they've locked him up, and they're doing the same thing with Lawrence Fox at the moment, trying to lock him up, and they'll continue to do that with any threat. The Liberals cannot face open debate. They cannot face open democracy, and so they have to use prosecution and persecution to get their own way and to keep their way. It is tyrannical, and it's funny because they are often the ones pointing their finger and calling everyone else a fascist. The lefty liberals are the ones acting like fascists. The ones who are saying they want to lock up Marine Le Pen and prevent her from running for another few years are saying our ideas cannot stand to scrutiny, and the opposition has good ideas. Therefore, we have to prevent the opposition from standing democratically. That is tyrannical. That is dictatorial.
It's tyranny. And Father Calvin, there is a message here for Nigel Farage, because Nigel, they're coming for you. And so if you genuinely think that you can somehow mold the establishment, that you can somehow become a guy who they don't want to destroy, I genuinely believe you are wrong. And
I don't think that's the case. I don't think they're coming for Farage. This is the problem. If they were coming for Farage, we'd know he's on the right track. The fact that they're so comfortable with him now shows that he's playing the game too well. Their game. He's playing up to them. He's appeasing the lefty liberals. They don't care about persecuting him or prosecuting him because they know he's not actually right wing.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually. But I guess, Father Calvin, what I have seen is that change in Farage, because, of course, he used to align himself quite significantly with Le Pen. That has changed. He also distanced himself from the AfD at the most recent German elections. And I believe there is no way that the globalists and deep state believe that they will allow Nigel Farage into power. So the time has come to unite, to rise up, to use the same sort of tactics and the same sort of rhetoric that we're seeing from Orban in Hungary, that we're seeing from Meloni in Italy. Like, do not run away from this fight, Farage, I guess is what I'm saying, because you are them. You could be Le Pen. I hear what you're saying, Father Calvin, too, but for me, this is a fight that anyone who is sound on the right of British politics should be taking on. And again, I feel it's really annoying to even have to say this, right? But it doesn't mean that you agree with every policy position of Le Pen. I don't agree with her on lots of her economic protectionism type stuff. That's not the point. This is about democracy, and it's about this total attempt to wipe out nationalists. Now, Alex Phillips, I think, has been very good on this today, Father Calvin. She's posted, "This is pure lawfare. The EU's favourite weapon is accusing parties of misappropriating EU funds for domestic purposes, when in reality the lines can be very blurred. They use Olaf, their Stasi-like fraud investigations department, to go after enemies of the project. Meanwhile, the EU's own fraud is off the charts. In 2023 alone, the total cost was 24.8 billion euros. Don't be fooled. What they are doing to Le Pen is deliberate, disingenuous, and dystopian."
She's spotted. No, she's been in that lion's den. She knows what's going on. I think she's absolutely right. The EU is full of fraud. That gravy train that those MEPs are on is disgusting. And then what was it? The president of the EU was found guilty of fraud and still promoted to the presidency. It's like they are in a club, a members club that support each other, but the people on the outside, they use their own tools against them, and so they say, yeah, those lot, they're the ones embezzling, when actually it's all of them.
I know. And the thing is, Father Calvin, I really struggle to see what she's going to do now, because obviously you've got Jordan Bardella, and he is the future star of the National Rally. I think he's still in his 20s or definitely early 30s. And the plan was, of course, for him to run as Prime Minister. So they have exploded now the entire National Rally plan. They've blown it up. And that was the plan.
It was, but I'm hoping that this rallies them more support from the general people in France, and that actually makes a bit of a martyr out of Le Pen, and her party will galvanize and encourage further support from the common folk, because that's what they need. They need to fight back. The people need to fight against the establishment who's trying to quash them.
Well, indeed. And I think, again, this is a message that I would also pass on to the National Rally, to Jordan Bardella. Don't bend the knee to the globalists. Because do you remember at the Trump inauguration, Father Calvin, I believe he walked out of an event because of the whole Elon Musk fake salute thing, which you know all about too well. And it's like, don't appease these guys. They want to destroy you. You knew Elon Musk wasn't giving a Nazi salute. Don't walk out. Stop trying to appease these people, because they are only looking for your destruction, which the court ruling with Marine Le Pen today proves.
If you appease them, you're saying they're right, essentially, and we know that they're not right, so fight them. People who aren't strong enough to fight them need to get out of the way and make room for someone that is.
Indeed. So what do you think will happen now, Father Calvin?
Honestly, I think they're going to throw everything they can at her now that she's already in their sights, and I don't think she'll have an opportunity to run again. And so I think the party need to come around her and support her, but also put plans in place for her successor, because they were making headwaves. They almost won the last election. If it wasn't fixed, they probably would have won the last election. And when I say fixed, they came together and changed the system of they collaborated with each other, parties that don't even agree with each other, and all kinds of games were played. But France is at a turning point, just as America was at a turning point last year. And so France has an opportunity to move away from the death culture, move away from woke, liberal extremism, and back towards ordinary, normal European values, Christian values. They have a chance. And with the Le Pen's party, they could do that. So it's about recentering and not letting her go down and take the party with her. They need to use this as a martyrdom to strengthen and encourage and bolster support. And I'm hoping that they do that.
Well, and maybe it can be Jordan Bardella then. I mean, he's 29. Father Calvin. I mean, I knew he was young, right? But that is quite insanely young. And I think the plan always was that Le Pen would be president, he would serve as her prime minister, and then there would be a changing of the guards. However, and you know I don't sign up to this, but there has been an argument that in some quarters of France, the Le Pen name is so toxic that actually Bardella could be a more appealing candidate. Do you see that as a possibility at all?
I think the Le Pen name is actually favorable. I think it helps them a lot more than it harms them. There are a few, but people that dislike the name of the people I think that will never vote for her anyway. And I think her family has built up that brand that is lending itself to the right of French politics. And so people know exactly who they are. I think it will do them more favors than not. It's a similar thing. I have this conversation with Lawrence a lot over UKIP. He's like, the name is tarnished. I'm like, yeah, the name is tarnished amongst people who are liberals and on the left, but on the right, people know exactly what it stands for. And I think that's helpful in politics, because to build a new brand is difficult. We saw this with Change UK, Heidi Allen's party. It is like, you can't just come out of nowhere. Otherwise, you have to spend years building that up. And France doesn't have the time to invest in building up another brand.
Yeah, and don't back away from what has made you great, from what has made you popular. And I do think, unfortunately, what all right-wing leaders across Europe need to take from today's decision is they are coming for you, right? You are not going to get the kid glove treatments. I mean, the sentence they've passed down on Le Pen is a 4-year jail sentence, suspended for 2 years. Now, she's not going to be in prison, Father Calvin, but she is going to be electronically tagged. I mean, this is lawfare. Pure and simple. I still can't get my head around it. I'm so disgusted by it. And I'm so disgusted that there are people who believe in democracy who sit back and think, oh, that's okay, because she's part of what is branded the far right. I just think those are despicable people.
It's going to get worse, and I think we're going to see much more of this in the UK. Obviously, Lawrence has got his case coming up. If he gets found guilty, he'll be registered as a sex offender, for goodness sake, for retweeting something. This is how bad things are getting. So my advice to you and anyone that's still publishing out there is make a contingency plan. Have something in place that when Ofcom take hold of these new powers that they've been given to censor the internet in the UK, have a place where your servers can go, have a place where you can go to continue doing the good work that you're doing in the independent media. And I've said this to you, I've said this to Lotus Eaters as well, and anyone that is in the UK trying to fight back, whether politically or in the journalistic sphere, needs to have plans in place, because the UK is going to come and clamp down on anyone right of Karl Marx.
Well, we've seen it, haven't we? We've seen someone over the weekend, a Times Radio producer, be arrested by 6 cops, spend 16 hours in a cell because he was having an argument with his disabled son's school. Now, I haven't spoken too much about the Lawrence Fox situation because, of course, this is an active case and it involves the fact that he posted this previous upskirt picture of Narinder Kaur. But just talk to me on a human level, Father Calvin. How is Lawrence coping with this news, which of course could put so much, and again, I won't go into the details for obvious reasons, but could put so much of his life at stake if the courts do decide that he's a sex offender, which obviously seems just totally ridiculous and out of all proportion.
I know it's awful because there are lots of consequences for that. Just living a day-to-day life in the UK, being on register, but also
traveling and of course involving family as well, which really matters.
It's disgusting, but people can watch our Fox and Father from yesterday to see how he's looking. I don't think he's doing too well. I think he's taking it hard, and so I'm trying to be there for him. And I know lots of people are reaching out and supporting him, but there's only so much you can do. I think you just need, at some point, you just need to get out of that system. The system is corrupt, and particularly when it comes to Lawrence, how many times have the police knocked on his door for different ludicrous things? It's going to get to a point where they're going to try and Tommy Robinson him. They're going to try and get him locked up in solitary confinement to punish him mentally, so that if he ever gets to leave, he'll not be the same person. The process is the punishment, and the Liberals love lawfare because they will just it's violence. They will use violence against you unless you succumb, unless you follow their ideology, and of course that's never going to happen.
No, it's sick. They will lose because, of course, they have lost in the United States of America, but going through this process is incredibly painful. Is Lawrence still coming on the Mark Stein cruise next week?
Yes. Okay. This is going to be so cool. The three of us.
We're on board. We're on board. Okay, well, we'll have to give him a little bit of TLC on board the Mark Stein cruise next week. There's a whole load of us going, Alison Pearson and Lilani Dowding. It's going to be great. Going to be really great. Breaking right now, an extraordinary new revelation in the claims that Prince Harry bullied, harassed, and even covered up a scandal at the Sentebale charity. Now, this is a truly astonishing story. I'm going to take you through it, and it involves Dr. Sophie Chandoka, who is a very accomplished, successful black businesswoman who fell out with Meghan Markle. I revealed this at the time because Meghan was revolting to her on stage at a Sentebale charity event. In the past few hours, it has emerged that Prince Harry actually sent Dr. Sophie Chandoka, and this is according to the Daily Telegraph, an unpleasant and imperious message demanding that she issue a statement defending his wife. Now, this is particularly terrible because the note was unpleasant in tone, and he demanded that Dr. Sophie explain herself. A spokesman for Sentebale has confirmed to the Daily Telegraph that the Duke of Sussex had sent the message saying, "This is true, there is a document." And you've got to admit now that people like me, who have been revealing shocking details about the bullying regularly conducted by both Prince Harry and Meghan Markle personally, but also the biggest gang of internet trolls in modern history, the Sussex Squad, you have to admit now that there are too many occasions of this to believe that it's some sort of conspiracy against the Sussexes. And given the woman in this case, who is being bullied and being discriminated against, is a black woman herself, they can no longer continue to throw the issue of race back in our face. These two try and destroy their enemies. They tried it with me. I've detailed it before. They were responsible for spreading absolute lies about me to try and shut me down, given I had reported the truth about their behavior for many years. Well, I think with Dr. Sophie Chandoka, they have messed with the wrong woman. I'm going to get analysis from Father Calvin Robinson on this story very shortly. But first, Father Calvin, I want to show you the key parts of this astonishing interview, a very brave interview that Dr. Sophie Chandoka conducted with Sky News over the weekend. I don't usually call them Sky News, I usually call them Sci News. But in this case, I have to say Trevor Phillips did a very fair and honest interview with this woman, where she revealed the true depths of how Harry interfered in this bullying investigation, which she has now declared a cover-up.
Isn't the problem here that it was you was the problem, not the prince?
It was me who was the problem because I put a whistleblower complaint about the bullying, the harassment, and the misogyny, and Prince Harry interfered in the investigation of that. And the senior independent director who should have taken care of it was the very same person who then delivered the news to me that I was going to be removed by the board. So it's a cover-up. And the prince is involved.
Wow. I mean, that is sensational television. But I think it's really important to look at where things went wrong. And they went...
Sophie, let's talk about where things, as you saw it.
And they went wrong when it came to this polo tournament, which Netflix wanted Harry to film at a Sentebale event. Watch.
Sophie, let's talk about where things, as you saw it, started to go wrong. One of the incidents was the fundraising, the polo tournament, which is one of the ways in which Sentebale raised a lot of money. What happened?
We were so fortunate to have the opportunity to do a polo challenge in Miami last year in April. We had a very generous family that was happy for us to use their polo grounds at a material discount. And then about a month before the event was about to take place, Prince Harry called the team and said, I'm doing a Netflix show, and I would love to bring a camera crew so that I can include some footage in this show. And so the team called me and tell me, oh, Prince Harry's made this request, so we're doing the things. I said, you can't be doing the things without seeking consent from the property owners, the sponsors, all the guests. Nobody signed up into being on a Netflix show. And so we have this discussion about the need to talk to everybody. We come up with draft agreements. And of course, the venue owner says, this is now a commercial undertaking. So here are my terms. We couldn't afford it. So now we lost the venue. So we went to another venue, and we were lucky enough that through Prince Harry's connections, actually, and a friend of his, there was another family that was prepared to host. The show went on, but there was a lot of disruption, right? A lot of people were unhappy because we'd worked on this for months.
So that's evidence of Harry putting his Netflix commitments ahead of his commitments to the African charity that he claims to have set up in his mother's name. But then things turned really toxic when Meghan Markle got involved, and you won't be surprised to learn her fingerprints are all over this row, as I've been reporting since last year. Watch.
At the actual, on the actual day, we had Prince Harry, which is always wonderful. The Duchess decided to attend, but she told us she wasn't attending. And she brought a friend, a very famous friend.
Serena Williams.
So you can imagine all of the activity that goes with these additional amazing people. We're excited about it. We would have been really excited had we known ahead of time, but we didn't. And so the choreography went badly on stage because we had too many people on stage. The international press captured this, and there was a lot of talk about the Duchess and the choreography on stage and whether she should have been there and her treatment of me. Prince Harry asked me to issue some sort of a statement in support of the Duchess, and I said I wouldn't. Not because I didn't care about the Duchess, but because I knew what would happen if I did so, number one. And number two, because we cannot be an extension of the Sussex.
What would have
PR
happened
machine.
if you had simply just said, there's nothing wrong with what's happened, what the Duchess did?
Well, the Duchess has told Dr. Sophie Chandauka to make a press release about her, and then she'll get even worse trolling. That's what would have happened.
Of course. And I do just want to remind you of what happened on stage, where Meghan made it clear that she was very jealous, as I reported at the time, of Dr. Sophie.
Thank you very much to Tonga for putting on such a great day here at the Jackass Polo Club. Again, a big thank you to all those who provided horses.
Now, why should Dr. Sophie have been forced to defend that utterly appalling behaviour from Meghan Markle? But when she didn't, and stick with me here because it's all making sense, when she didn't, Harry, no doubt, under pressure from Meghan Markle, sends her an abusive email. Who gives a damn about all of the charity work that's been done? Who gives a damn about what Sentebale is actually there to do? And then when Dr. Sophie didn't play ball and refused to quit, what happens? The Sussex squad are unleashed. Watch.
Is guilty of harassment and bullying and improper conduct in the governance of a charity.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I'm going to give you a really good example. The only reason I'm here, Trevor, is because at some point on Tuesday, Prince Harry authorized the release of a damaging piece of news to the outside world without informing me, or my country directors, or my executive director. And can you imagine what that attack has done for me, on me, and the 540 individuals in the Sentebale organizations and their family? That is an example of harassment and bullying at scale. And so if the world didn't want to believe that there's such a thing as bullying, this unleashing of the Sussex machine on me and the 540 employees at Sentebale who received this and have had to defend it.
By the way, when you say the Sussex machine, what are you talking about?
The PR machine that supports Prince Harry's efforts. The only way we discovered of his decision was through the Sussex machine activating newspapers.
You were not told that he planned and the Princess planned to resign?
We were informed that they have the intention to withdraw if I went to the High Court and succeeded.
All right.
Amen, sister. Harassment and bullying at scale. That is what Prince Harry and Meghan do. And it's not only Dr. Sophie, it's not only me who've had to experience this. It's, for example, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, when she was undergoing secret cancer treatment. Now, why does Harry not like Dr. Sophie? Well, it's because she challenged Prince Harry over his situation. Watch.
When you came back as chair in 2023, what did you think was going wrong?
Now, I'm going to answer this very frankly, but I just want to say normally I wouldn't want to discuss family business in this way in an open forum. But here we are, and I'll do my best to be frank in my disclosure. So when I arrived in July in 2023, of course, the first thing you do is you open the annual report, you look at the board minutes to see what it is that's going on in the organization. When you look at the I did a 7-year historical review of the financials, looking at our costs and looking at our revenues, so income. It was pretty obvious to me that we had lost quite a number of corporate sponsors, we'd lost some families, and we'd lost individuals who were donating to the organization. And there was quite a significant correlation between the time the organization started to see a departure of sort of major organizations and Prince Harry's departure from the UK itself. When you look at the board minutes, though, there is no discussion about what's happening with respect to some of our most significant funders. And then when you discuss with the senior executive team and ask why there isn't a conversation about this, the answer is it's really difficult to have this conversation because the instruction was it's an uncomfortable conversation to have with Prince Harry in the room.
So the central point here is when you look at the risk register of the charity and funding, number one risk is that's Duke of Sussex.
Yes.
Is that your opinion or?
It is.
He was destroying his own charity because of the way he destroyed his family, and donors were walking. Watch.
To be absolutely clear here, you're saying, Sophie, number one, that what you discovered was essentially donors were walking because of the prince's reputation.
Yes.
Father Calvin Robinson, the reason I wanted to watch so much of that interview with Dr. Sophie Chandoka is because this is a very accomplished woman, very successful business-wise, probably not someone I agree with politically, probably not someone you agree with politically. But I believe that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have finally messed with the wrong person because she is not going to put up with their bullying and harassment at scale. And the most critical thing is, Father Calvin, she has the receipts and she is prepared to produce them.
Firstly, I love her composure. She's very reverential toward the Duchess and the Duke, even after how they've treated her, which I think shows a certain ability and integrity in herself. to hear all these stories is unsurprising but very disappointing. The fact that they constantly disrupt the charity work for their own personal PR campaign, such as Prince Harry saying, well, we're now bringing Netflix along, and that changing it to a corporate event and losing the venue and disrupting the actual event on the day. Or whether it's Meghan Markle and Serena Williams turning up as if it's a jolly, and again disrupting the charity event. Or Prince Harry, from the way he's treating his family, being disrespectful towards his country and the institution of the royal family, losing donors, which a charity cannot function without, and therefore breaking down the charity work essentially, and still they're not able to have the conversation because he's too precious. And so what's the point of the board if the board aren't willing to challenge the biggest risk to the charity, who seems to be Prince Harry, and to be fair, by the sounds of it, his wife, Meghan Markle? All of it is a grave, grave mess. And the way they've treated Dr. Sophie, by, as she put it, using the Sussex machine against her, is awful. It's, death by press release. I can empathize with her a lot on this. I just received a newspaper yesterday where I'm on the front cover of it yet again with an article by my former archbishop. It's like, this is a certain mentality of cowardice that want to attack people and smear them and discredit them in the public because they're too small to have a conversation with them in person. Now, it seems like that's what's happening to Dr. Sophie, and that if they'd have just had a conversation with her and said, well, look, this is why we want to do what we're doing, she would have been able to say, no, this is why it's not a good idea for you to bring your wife and her celebrity friend to this event unless you tell us about it in advance. Or this is why it's not a good idea for me to write a press release supporting you, when clearly it's not about you. It's about the charity work, for goodness sake. So I actually, fully back Dr. Sophie in all of the things that she's just shared in her testimony just there. I think it's very powerful for her to share that. It makes her very vulnerable. But we can finally see the truth. And as you alluded to in your opening statement, that they often weaponize Meghan's race as a tool to shut down any opposing views. And they can't do that because Dr. Sophie is actually black, unlike Meghan Markle. So
well,
what are they going to do?
Indeed. And Father Calvin as well, Dr. Sophie cares about this charity. And that matters, right? Because Sentebale was set up specifically to help with some of the most deprived young people in the world, in Lesotho and Botswana, two of the most deprived countries in the world. That matters. Harry is walking away because of his ego. He's not a humanitarian. He doesn't give a damn. He gives a damn about himself and making money and about the ego of his out-of-control wife. And there's an example that Dr. Sophie spoke about, by the way, Calvin, of how discussions worked at a board level where Harry was almost treated as if he was some type of dictator. And remember, this matches up with the reporting from the Hollywood Reporter, who actually quoted former staff members describing Meghan Markle as a dictator duchess in high heels. Watch this.
Prince Harry decides on a specific occasion that he wants to appoint an individual to the board with immediate effect without having talked to me. It's not on the agenda. And somehow everybody's just supposed to tolerate that.
The he being here, Prince Harry?
Yes, Prince
So Prince Harry comes into the meeting and says, I want to appoint somebody as CEO.
As a board member, as a trustee with immediate effect. His proxy on the board says, yes, I second that motion. The third proxy on the board says, welcome to the board, Brian. And everybody's shocked and quiet. But this is what happens when the prince is in the room and no one has the courage to speak.
And Father Calvin, this really does remind me of just how much work was done behind the scenes by the so-called men in grey suits who Prince Harry and Meghan Markle turned on, but actually they were there to protect Prince Harry from himself. He is a hot-headed, very nasty individual, not a smart guy, but one of these privileged men who has only ever got his own way, and they protected him from himself. And out there in the big bad world, unfortunately, the real Prince Harry has been exposed.
And that's going to continue to happen because they seem to have they're control freaks. They seem to have this mission to protect their image at all costs, and that's what's most important to them, even over fame and fortune, it seems. And you can't live that way. So it's going to keep breaking down as they keep sending nasty emails to people like Dr. Sophie saying, you must defend the honor of my wife. They're going to continue to get leaked because you can't keep doing that. And so hopefully people continue to keep receipts. But this is why the royal family have always been patrons rather than board members of charities, because having a royal in the room does, of course, it affects the dynamic of the room, regardless of whether it's Prince Harry or anyone else. So when they're in honorary positions like a patron, they don't get a say in how things operate. They just turn up, and that helps boost support, helps boost fundraising, therefore helps boost the charitable works. But when they're in the boardroom like Prince Harry and dictating who's on the board or what they do, what the agenda is, or just disregarding the agenda, setting their own agenda, that's dangerous for the charity, for everyone involved, because they're all liable to whatever happens in that boardroom. And so when he steps in with his privilege and acts as a dictator, whether he means to or not, he's bringing the charity into disrepute.
And the hilarious thing is, Father Calvin, that Harry has claimed that he doesn't want to make his own money anymore. He's going to let Meghan be the main breadwinner, and he's going to be a full-time philanthropist. Well, hardly, because you are now toxic to charities, because charities do not want to be involved with such a nasty brand, with a brand, the Sussex brand, that decided to trample all over the late Queen Elizabeth II in her dying days. And it's interesting to see the support, Father Calvin, that Dr. Sophie is getting online. Watch this.
This is mad. About 12 years ago, I did some work with Dr. Sophie, Chandauka. I hope I pronounced your name right, girl. And let me tell you, this woman is lovely. You would not know that she was so senior with how personable she was. She had time for everyone. Really, I've got not a bad word to say against her. And I'll say to her, I'll say to Harry, I'll say to anyone, because people are mentioning Meghan, anyone, stop the beef. It's not worth it to be beefing so publicly like this. When you do this, everyone loses. You're not rappers. Your brand doesn't increase because you want a rap battle, because you're beefing. Everyone loses a little bit. Yeah? So I'll say, y'all need to have a mediator, someone who can show you some love, who can say, you know what, let's work this out behind closed doors. Because they're going after her, her family, their employees, they're going after their family as well. The harassment is insane. So stop the beef. Let's hug it out. Do you get me?
But they won't, Father Calvin, because trust me, I went through this. They only want to destroy their enemies. That is how they operate. That's why I'm so glad this is being called out.
It's vicious, it's nasty, it needs to come to an end. It will come to an end. The more they bully people, the more people find the courage to speak out. And how many reports of bullying have we had from that family so far?
Constant. Constant.
Yeah.
And of course, the Buckingham Palace report remains covered up because actually the royal family were trying to protect Harry and Meghan. Then there are the bullying accusations now out of Archewell and Los Angeles. It's constant. The thing that I found hilarious is that the Mail and GB News seem to be more concerned not about Dr. Sophie Chandoka's mental health, Father Calvin, but about Prince Harry's mental health.
Oh, really?
I think it's going to really, really upset Harry, especially because they've been having a professional separation, Meghan and Harry. So she's been, as you say, doing all her cookery shows and her influencing. And he's very much hoping to carve himself out as a philanthropist full-time. And that was his plan for 2025. And absolutely, it's been completely destroyed by this. And there are some reports that people are actually worried about his mental health because it's so part of who he is. It's the original thing that gave him purpose years ago. And it reminds him of his mother. You know, of course, it was set up in honour of her. Yes. And I just wonder what he's going to do without this charity or without really any charity. Obviously, he's got Invictus, but his philanthropic efforts have sort of stalled very early.
I mean, I'm sorry, Father Calvin, I don't care. He chose this. I mean, when your wife has caused you to lose everything, right? Your friends, your family, your country, your credibility, your reputation, your popularity. At some point, surely we've got to think, this is down to him. If he is that whipped, even now, to allow Meghan to destroy the charity in which he set up in his mother's name, then I'm sorry, zero sympathy from me. Genuinely. He was warned time and again.
Yeah, he chose this, but not only did he choose this, he continues to choose this, and that's the problem. And as you're right, the charity that he founded in his mother's name is being destroyed. It's not just Meghan doing it; he's doing it too. So he's becoming as bad as her. I don't understand this professional separation, as they call it. It seems very weird to me to send her out to be the breadwinner so he could just swan around, going to nice events and smiling and, oh, playing royal. They're not working royals. It seems like that's what he wants to be again, but he'll never be that unless he returns to the fold. And I can't see him having the humility to do that and apologize for all the harm he's caused the royal family and the country.
No, very well put, Father Calvin Robinson. Very, very well put. This is a shocking situation. Much more to come. And all I'm going to say is you've got my support, Dr. Sophie Chandoku. I don't even care if we disagree on everything politically, because you have called out nasty, evil bullying on a grand scale, and for that you deserve huge credit. Now, it's all kicking off today because there is now a huge row, a huge feud behind the scenes between two of the biggest stars of the British bashing corporation. Father Calvin and I are going to reveal all in just 1 minute, so don't go anywhere. But first, we ingest a credit card's worth of microplastics every week. Tiny particles, how disturbing is this? In our food, our water, our air. They don't just pass through, they build up in our organs, disrupt hormones, and are linked to fertility issues, neurological disorders, and heart disease. In early 2024, human brain samples contained 0.5% plastic by weight, with higher levels tied to Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative diseases. Microplastics have also been found in semen and placentas, correlating with lower sperm quality, fetal exposure, and declining fertility. BPA and phthalates mimic or disrupt hormones like estrogen and testosterone, leading to reduced sperm counts, irregular cycles, and development issues in children. With microplastics in bottled water, food, and even household dust, avoiding exposure is impossible, but you can support your body's ability to fight back. Moringa activates the NRFT pathway, your body's detox switch, helping flush out microplastic-associated toxins like BPA, BPS, and phthalates. This pathway boosts detox enzymes, making harmful chemicals water-soluble for easy excretion. Now, not all moringa is created equal, though. Many supplements use lower quality sources, root, bark, contaminated powders, that type of thing, lacking the full spectrum of benefits. Plus, moringa naturally tastes bitter and, to be honest, pretty gross. So that's what led me to Morning Bean by Verso, a rich, chocolatey coffee alternative packed with moringa, cocoa, polyphenols, and electrolytes to help detox, fuel energy, performance, focus, and longevity. Now, this is my Morning Bean here. I've saved some for the afternoon today because I just wanted to try it and show you how good it tastes. Genuinely like a McDonald's hot chocolate. I'm not even joking. I don't know how they mask the bitter notes of moringa, but actually I don't care because it's just so good. Plus, Verso only uses pure moringa leaf, the most nutrient-dense part of the plant, and conducts third-party testing on every batch to ensure potency, purity, and safety. You can't avoid microplastics, but you can support your body's detox process. Start your day with Morning Bean for research-backed detox, energy, and health. Click the link below or visit buy.ver.so using the code Outspoken for 15% off. That's buy.ver.so using the code Outspoken for 15% off. But now, back to the show. Breaking right now, it's civil war at the British Bashing Corporation as two of the star presenters of the Today programme, Emma Barnett and Nick Robinson, go head to head, with Barnett even complaining to management about the former BBC political editor. Let me take you through these revelations from the Mail on Sunday. BBC star Emma Barnett lodged a complaint against her Today co-presenter Nick Robinson soon after joining Radio 4's flagship news programme. Last week, it was reported that the two journalists had not appeared together on the show for 90 days, sparking rumours of clashing egos making life difficult for producers. Now it seems the tensions began soon after 40-year-old Ms. Barnett joined the show from Women's Hour in April last year. She is understood to have lodged a complaint with Deborah Turness, the chief executive of the BBC's News and Current Affairs division, after finding her veteran co-host overbearing. Insiders said the matter was resolved with no action taken and there had been no suggestion Mr. Robinson had done anything wrong. Why did she complain then? Well, they blamed the inevitable stresses and strain caused by the pairing of two strong characters, and said the pair had experienced a sort of misunderstanding common between colleagues, but in this case it had been blown out of proportion. However, a source said Emma made a complaint about Nick, adding that tensions have persisted so much that they can't be on together as she finds him so overbearing. Father Calvin Robinson just shows you, doesn't it? It is a den of vipers at the British Bashing Corporation. However, I think that Nick Robinson, that Farage-hating Ramona, that absolute biased leftist is clearly a nightmare to work with.
I honestly thought you were talking about GB News and Dev Turner and Andrew Pierce for a while there.
To be honest, it's even worse at GB News, as we know.
Yeah, it's not good when people working together hate each other in that way, but the BBC is a toxic environment that has bred toxicity like this since the very beginning, and we have cover-up after cover-up of bullying, harassment, even paedophilia, for goodness sake, at that institution, and it still goes on. It still marches on somehow, shape or form. We had a Conservative government in power for 14 years. If they didn't defund the BBC, I can't see the Labour Party doing it, and so it's just going to continue on with the bullying, harassment, and potentially paedophilia. And I'm not even talking historic. We had a case just last year, didn't we, for goodness sake?
Yeah, indeed. And I'm sorry, I find the entire way that the British Bashing Corporation within the news division, how they operate, despicable. I mean, here they are fighting amongst themselves, Father Calvin, when they all knew about Hugh Edwards. They all knew. Now, I'm not saying they knew that he was a paedophile, that he was accessing paedophilic images. What they did know, Father Calvin, is that his behaviour was completely unprofessional. And this is the thing. Maybe Emma Barnett does have an actual claim against Nick Robinson. Who knows? But we can't trust the BBC to investigate properly, because this is an organisation that covers up for their biggest stars for decades. I mean, look at Martin Bashir and the Princess Diana interview. That potentially led to her death. Exactly, they're still covering up. Exactly.
That Bashir interview, and there have been no consequences for that, really. That's disgusting what happens. But they're still covering up for Gary Lineker, for goodness sake. And we all know what he gets up to in private. The fact that the BBC think they can get away with it because he's a big star, and all the other big stars, it's disgusting. It's sickening, actually. I would love to see a public inquiry into the BBC, because for some reason the government has always allowed the BBC to self-regulate and self-govern. So even, we had off-communists down our throats at GB News. The BBC doesn't have it. I don't know if the public realise the BBC doesn't have off-communists down their throats in the same way. The BBC is expected to regulate itself in the first instance. I find that abhorrent.
Indeed, you're so right to point out Gary Lineker, by the way, who has been an absolute scumbag in so many ways for so many years. Matt Letizia has been very, very clear on this, yet it was only when he pushed them so far that they finally got rid. And actually, there are truly disturbing things that have happened for many decades within the BBC News organisation. I mean, Jill Dando, whose murder remains unsolved, Father Calvin, was investigating the paedophile rings at the BBC in the months and the years before her death. So in some ways, you've got to be quite brave to blow the whistle at the BBC, don't you? I mean, Jill Dando ended up dead. And of course, I'm not implicating the BBC in that. But what I am saying is that why was she taken out soon after that investigation took place? Why have we not learned about the extent of her investigation? Because it's not an exaggeration to say that there has been, or at least that there was, a paedophile ring operating in plain sight at the BBC for decades.
Absolutely, it's disgusting. Obviously, people think of Jimmy Savile because he's the scapegoat, the one that we know about because he's dead. But there are certainly many more of them, and as we learned with Hugh Edwards very recently. But that would be a great way to honour Jill Dando's memory, wouldn't it? By releasing the investigation that she put together before she died, before she was killed, rather. So maybe that's an appeal we should start for the BBC to release the Jill Dando report.
And Father Calvin, I mean, let me put it this way, right? If the BBC, the British Bashing Corporation, was a private company, was operating out there in a way that all normal companies do, either on the stock market or with private investors, it would have been shut down years ago. The fact that we try to claim that we're proud, we kept being told, you know, in one of the psyops we're told that we're meant to be proud of this organization, that the BBC sort of flies the flag for the United Kingdom, for Britain around the world. Let me tell you, I am embarrassed by this organization. This organization deserves to be shut down. I mean, it should have been shut down, by the way, for Jimmy Savile alone. It should have been shut down for Martin Bashir alone. It should have been shut down for Hugh Edwards alone. Why do we keep being told we should be proud of the BBC? We should fund the BBC. We should support the BBC. I'm disgusted by the BBC. I'm sorry, I am.
Yeah, the gaslighting is immense, isn't it? Even Nigel Farage used the words in Parliament that it's a soft power. The BBC hasn't been a soft power for a long time, since the British Empire was a power and the BBC was its soft force. Because if the BBC, even the World Service today, if the BBC is a soft power, what is it a soft power for? Well, liberal, woke, progressive values. That's what it's spreading around the world, and that's what it's spreading at home too. Is that what we want to be a soft power for? It's not what I want to be a power for at all. So unless the BBC returns to spreading the Christian values, the British values that it was known for 100 years ago, then it needs to end. And actually, it's gone the other way. Just this week, we had the announcement of the first Eid service on the BBC. Now, the BBC has ended most of its Christian servicing a long, long time ago. Most of those programs are dead and buried. And now they've started promoting the new state religion, which is Islam. I cannot believe there's an official Eid service on the British Broadcasting Corporation network, the state arm, the propaganda arm of the United Kingdom.
I mean, this is absolutely astonishing, Father Calvin. As Turning Point UK pointed out on this, for the first time ever, Eid celebrations will be broadcast live on the BBC. 6% of the population is Muslim. And there's the listing, Father Calvin, from 1050. Jason Muhammad introduces Eid prayers from Bradford Central Mosque. What are they doing? That's the question Turning Point UK are asking. What do you think the answer is?
It's a good question. Only in the last 24 hours, right, I've had so many things to retweet. I'm getting sick of retweeting them. One was the BBC pushing the Eid service. The other was the royal family pushing out a message to say Eid Mubarak. The other was the British Army. They put out an Eid celebration too. Then there was the footage from the BBC of the Eid service. There was another British Army video. This is just within the last 24 hours, for goodness sake. So a minority cult in our country is being pushed as if it's the predominant faith of the people. It's being pushed far more than Christianity is, far more than so-called atheism or liberal progressive ideas of all faiths and religions being neutral. Islam is the topic of conversation in our country. I don't know why. The Prime Minister, the King, everyone, the BBC, the Royal Forces, why is Islam being pushed like it's some kind of gaslit approach to convince the nation that we are an Islamic caliphate?
And Father Calvin, I mean, you mentioned the Prime Minister, but can we just finally talk about his tweet or his post on X yesterday? As the holy month of Ramadan ends, I wish Muslims in the UK and across the world a blessed and joyful Eid. Now, this was Mother's Day, a really important day. In the Christian calendar, in the British calendar, not a word from the Prime Minister on that. As Connor Tomlinson there replied to him, Ramadan and Eid are as alien to Britain as first cousin marriage, acid attacks, honoured killings, female genital mutilation, jihadi violence, and all the other awful practices imported with Islam. It makes our country measurably worse, but you think that's a fair trade to gain power for yourself? Or as Sharon Davies MBE put it, yeah, And happy Mother's Day to all mothers in the UK, said facetiously. Inevitable West, similar line. It's Mother's Day in Lent. You chose Ramadan over British mothers and British Christians. You're a traitor. And there still was no Mother's Day post. So this is a deliberate thing that Starmer's doing.
It is deliberate. I replied to him saying, what makes it holy? Because he could say that the Mohammedans find it holy, but he's calling it holy. I find that fascinating. I think Keir Starmer is a proclaimed atheist. His wife and children are Jews. There's nothing holy about Ramadan to them. It is like they're mocking us because he hasn't mentioned Lent. The King and the Prime Minister are not talking about Lent. They didn't mention Shrove Tuesday or Pancake Day, Ash Wednesday. And you're right, Sunday, when these posts were going live, was Mothering Sunday, which is a Christian observance. Long before the secular idea of Mother's Day, Mothering Sunday has been the day that Christians throughout history have gone to their mother church. So anyone in London would have paid a homage to St. Paul's Cathedral, for example. And this is when people used to be baptized in the cathedral. And so it's a celebration that's been going on for a long time. England has been a Christian country for nearly 1.5 millennia. We have a Christian king, a Christian established state church, but for some reason it's Islam that keeps getting all the celebrations. And as Connor points out, Islam is anti-British, anti-Christian, anti-English. It's anti-everything that we stand for. So why would our establishment and elite spend so much time promoting something that is against us if it's not that they hate us? They hate Britain and they hate the British.
Very well put. Very well put, Father Calvin Robinson. Thank you so much. And you're going to be back for a very special edition of the show next week when we are counting down the 50 worst people in the UK today. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing you for that. And of course, on the Mark Stein cruise. So safe travels.
I'll see you on the ship.
Safe travels to Barcelona. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of your feedback today. Greatest Britain Union Jackass announced in just one moment. First, though, your comments. This is obviously on the whole mass deportation reform UK civil war. Sandra Bohan writes, Nigel will not stop the boats. He only thinks about one thing, and that's himself. From Al Foster, Nigel only cares about optics. He, and I hate to say this, Reform don't have the bandwidth or force to be able to action even half of their manifesto. I understand people saying it's our only option, but I don't have the faith they can action a remarkable change. And I think that sums up pretty much where I'm at, Al Foster, if I'm honest. And Pillowcase, hello Pillowcase, writes, I want Rupert and Ben to join UKIP to form a better party and to get this country back on its feet. Okay, Greatest Britain Union Jackass time. A reminder of your nominees. Ed Davey. I'm not going to read out the nomination from Darren Donaldson again. I'm just going to show you the video. This was earlier today, and my God, it's bad.
It's killing me. Woo! Woo! Oh. It's a refusal. No, to do it. Yes. It's blue. We're going to go straight through. What crazy.
I'm not laughing. You, sir, are a disgrace. You are an embarrassment. Think of the political issues going on in this country at the moment. Honestly. The other nominees, Taiwo Awatimi, nominated by It's Only Me, 44, for using £900 of taxpayer money to pay for her dog to live with her at her second home. And the MP, Tahir Ali, nominated by Y. Flanagan, because, of course, he's one of those series of MPs who were all opposed to the third runway at Heathrow, but are now campaigning for us to build an airport in Pakistan. Okay. Taiwo Owatemi in third place with 17% of your vote. The runner-up, Ed Davey, for his bizarre hobby horse stunt, but with 62% of the vote for his Mirpur Airport campaign, it's Tahir Ali MP, the first Eugenie and Jackass of the week. Today's Greatest Britain, nominated by Darren Donaldson, and I fully agree with this one. Dr. Sophie Chandoka for speaking up on bullying and harassment and cover-ups by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. We'll get into that a bit more on the Uncancelled Royal Aftershow, where we're teaming up with Brittany from the Royal News Network on Substack, www.outspoken.live. But actually, I want to start today with this extraordinary story of Piers Morgan getting in the way of the royal family. There has been a major new feud between two members of the royal family because of their relationship with Piers Morgan. This is a truly fascinating story. Head to Substack right now, www.outspoken.live. But we are back live tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. No, actually, oh gosh, it's gone back. The clocks have changed. I've got to get my head back into it. Midday Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific. So we're back to usual, thank God, because if you're watching from overseas, the clocks have changed. Although I know, because my family are watching in New Zealand, we're now 12 hours difference in New Zealand. So isn't this so annoying? Shouldn't we all change our clocks at the same time or just not change them at all? That's a whole other discussion, though. If you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, please hit subscribe right now. I promise to keep fighting for you, and I hope to see you on the after show on Substack in just one moment.